And welcome into Pressbox Live. I'm Stan the Fan Charles of Pressbox and PressboxOnline.com. With me is Ross Grimsley. And Ross, how are you tonight?
I'm doing great. How you doing, Stan?
All right. After I read my radio ad
Right.
it's a radio ad on TV for C3 American Exteriors. After I read that, we'll explain why the spaceman has not landed with us. All right.
Spaced
Sound
out.
good?
Yeah.
Hey, Pressbox Live is brought to you each Monday and Wednesday night by our friends at C3 American Exteriors. Go to their website at c3america.com to get a brand new roof for just the cost of your insurance deductible. And as I like to say, each and every Monday and Wednesday, if you own a home, there will be no more expensive proposition for you if you have to fix or replace your roof. So why not get a company that you know a little bit about, you like, and you trust? And those are the three boxes I can check for you for C3 American Exteriors. I know one of the owners of the company. They stand behind their work, and more importantly, they do great work. C3 American Exteriors. Check out their website at c3america.com. And we will also announce tonight that this Wednesday night, Loyola men's basketball coach Tavares Hardy will be my guest on Wednesday evening. All right, Ross, you've known Bill Lee a long time. It seems like you've known him since we've been trying to get him on the show the last couple of weeks.
Really?
It's a long time. But explain to the folks, where the heck does Bill live?
Bill's up in Vermont, out in the woods. He's
Okay.
He was telling me today that he's got about probably about 400 or 500 yards of driveway to walk up. So I called him. He didn't answer the phone. He called me right back. Said he was out of breath. I go, "What are you doing?" He goes, "I had to run all the way." He was telling me how far it was. So he's out in the woods, and he was going to have to go to the library to get an internet connection because he didn't have one. Right. So that was the big to-do. We're trying to work that out.
There's only one problem. If he would try and be on with us talking at the library, they might all go, shh.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no. He owns the town, so,
All right.
So, that would have been great.
We're going to work towards getting Bill on with us.
Yeah.
And it might be the first time we've ever done just an audio where Ross and I will be on screen and we'll talk to Bill Lee because he's had a remarkable career. And Ross, when we tried to get him on right before 6 o'clock, I said, "Bill, nice to meet you. I'm Stan Charles." And he goes, I said, "How you doing?" He goes, "I lost the tough one yesterday."
Right.
And usually somebody that age, he's 74. I'm going to be 70 in January. Usually somebody that says that, you think they mean that a friend of theirs passed away. He lost the game yesterday.
He lost the game. Oh, no, he takes us serious. He's been doing it for years. He feels a lot better physically, but he is the oldest pitcher to ever win a professional game.
Really? How old was he? How old?
That was probably last year.
Okay, so he was like 73.
But in my first question when I talked to him, a couple of weeks ago, trying to get him on the show, I go, "How you feeling? What are you doing?" It's great. He tried to tell me about his pitching. I said, "I don't want to hear about your pitching. I want to hear about your hitting." Because he takes a lot of pride in his hitting, and all pitchers did because they love to hit. But he has a lot of fun doing this, takes it serious, as serious as you can take it. But I know he plays in the Roy Hobbs League. He's going to be down here in Florida October or November. Hopefully I'll get a chance to go to Fort Myers and see him. And he said he would come up here at the house and see us and maybe play some golf. But he'll be a great. He's got a lot of great stories, and he is a very interesting guy.
Maybe we can get him on the anniversary date of one of the two games he started in the 1975 World Series.
Yeah.
This is a guy, by the way, who in his career had about a .569 winning percentage. He was 119 and 90. He had 3 17-game winning seasons and 1 16-game winning season. And he started 2 games in what arguably is still the greatest World Series ever, the 1975 Boston Cincinnati series that Boston lost in the seventh game, or we could say Cincinnati won it in the seventh game. But very interesting to look, in game six, that's a famous game where Carlton Fisk hit the home run that won the
Right.
game for Boston. Actually, that was started by, I take it back. It was game seven that they lost 4-3. Bill Lee had a 3-0 lead. He was staked early in that game to a 3-0 lead, and he gave up a 2-run homer to Tony Perez in the sixth, and then he gave up the game tying run in the seventh. And it was interesting. Eventually, he would become a teammate of Tony's in Montreal. Did the two of them get along well?
Bill got along with everybody.
Okay.
I mean, he was, a lot of his stuff was show.
Right.
He's a really good showman. He's the Bill Veeck of players, you might say. But he's a lot of fun, good guy, really competitive, worked hard. And some of the things that happened to him off the field, and just an example, when he got knocked out of a game, in Montreal, he would go running through the streets, just jogging. He would just, all that frustration, he would get it out. Well, he came back one day all bloody, his elbows and knees are off. He got hit by a cab. So he comes trotting in. What happened? Got hit by a cab. It's weird. I mean, if it can happen to somebody and it's weird, it's going to happen to him.
I gotta ask you a question about him, because it really kind of not freaked me out, but he was drafted in the 22nd round in 1968 out of the University of Southern California.
Right.
By the 69 season, like somewhere midway in, he got his first taste in the major leagues. And I'm wondering, what did they see? Because he only had a very few games, like 14 games in 68 in the minor leagues.
Yeah, I think he threw. I think he had six when he got called up. I think he pitched in 20 games, something like that. And then the next couple of years, I obviously he threw harder than he did. Yeah. When he started when he learned to pitch. Most of us did. It got called up. We threw hard. We learned how to pitch, because there's a good chance if we were doing well, we were going to be out there 9 innings, at least, and sometimes longer. But he was in the game you're talking about, the Perez. I think he threw him he called it the Leafus pitch. It was a Leafus, but it was a Leafus is what he called it.
Boy, that took some brass balls to throw that in a World Series.
Exactly, and he was an artist on the mound, so to speak. Changing speeds and doing stuff. But what a competitor! And I tell you, he would get him on the show and listening to some of the stuff. And I would love to. He's coming from a baseball family. Yeah. And his aunt played in the All-American Girls Professional Baseball team. And I hate to give out stuff now, but I'd really have him do it. But I got to do this. She was probably the best athlete in the family and taught him how to pitch.
Wow. Was she a pitcher? She was a pitcher?
I guess so, yeah. Okay. But that was something. But
I'm just curious about one other thing. He pitched for Dick Williams in Boston.
Right.
And then again in Montreal.
Yeah.
Do you remember, was Dick Williams instrumental in trying to acquire Bill Lee? Because Dick wasn't, when he was in Montreal, the Expos were pretty darn good.
Well, when I got there in 78, they were just starting to turn the corner. Correct. And, you had Gary Carter, Larry Parrish, Chris Spire, Dave Cash, Tony Perez. Then you had the outfield, Dawson, Cromartie, and Ellis Valentine. Ellis Valentine had one of the best arms you'll ever see. And then one of the guys on the bench, a guy named Sammy Mejias, he had the best arm of anybody in the league, and he wasn't even a starter. But
was he Roman's son, Roman Mejias' son?
Gosh, I have no idea. Right. But you could see that, and that was one of the reasons I went there, because it was a young team, and
well, they won 95. They won 95 games in 79, and in 90 they won 90 in 80.
Right.
But they were a very, very good team.
Yeah, I mean, they had some great, some obviously great players, Hall of Fame guys, and it was really special to be around those guys. But they were just learning how to win, and it was crazy because when I was there, the first year after the season, they wanted to get Rudy May, and then they got Bill Lee. They got three of us that were really soft tossers, and but then he had Steve Rogers, who was an outstanding, pitcher. He was 500,
Was
but
Scott,
he
was Scott Sanderson with you
Sanderson
too?
was just coming to, just getting on his way. There's a few other guys involved that really did some good things. But they had the nucleus of a really good team, and they went on and obviously did, pretty good. They didn't get the World Series, but they come pretty close.
Hey, a question. I asked Brandon Hyde, I was on the presser this afternoon to change gears a little bit, because you've been around baseball for a long time. And I've been wanting to ask him this question for about a month, but I needed to get on a Zoom before a game. I don't want to ask him after a game because all the writers are asking him about the game. But I asked him today, and I was a little surprised I didn't get a little bit more. Yeah, that's an interesting idea. I asked him if when you have a young team like he does, and you're trying to get better next year, would he consider naming a player to be captain of the team? And I said, if so, would you consider Cedric Mullins to be a candidate to be a captain of your team? And he talked glowingly about him. He's got the night off tonight, and he told them, don't come in early today. Don't take batting practice. It's a day off.
Don't even show up
until the sixth inning. No, and then be ready to. He said, I got there and I looked outside, and he was there 2 hours early, doing his workouts in uniform. But so he was glowing about him, but he said, I don't really think, he goes, now getting a group of veterans together on my team to be sort of like a panel of the senior players.
That's what your great teams were. I mean, you look at the Oakland back in the 70s. Look at the Reds, the big red machine. Sparky had to keep 8 guys happy.
Yeah,
those were the starting lineup, and it was the same every day, usually, unless somebody had a break. And
well,
that's
he alluded when he was on with us 3-4 weeks ago, and that's still available, by the way. If you go to PressBoxOnline.com and hit the video button, you'll see our interview with Johnny Bench. He alluded to the fact that Sparky would come to him Morgan, and I think it was Concepcion, I think was the third guy. But he had like sort of a group of vets that he would run things by.
He had 3 guys. He had Tony Perez, Joe Morgan, Johnny Bench. He had Pete Rose. He had all the nationalities and groups.
It was a diverse team.
It was, and you had Sparky's thing was you could go to any one of those guys if you wanted something done or wanted this guy. I mean, it was really neat, and the guys they would come to you, but those guys controlled the team.
Yeah,
and you had that, and there was nothing wrong with that. It was fine because winning, and that's one of the things now I just have such a problem with is an organization, a front office that won't put a team on the field, the best team they possibly can to win. I just I never dreamed of it in my life that I would ever see that.
Yeah.
And I understand, I get the gist of it, but when losing seems more important in winning just to get a draft pick, and there is no way, this is not like NFL, NBA. You don't know what that number 1 pick is going to do.
Baseball is a lot more uncertain than any of the 3 other major sports. In hockey, you kind of have an idea. In NBA, of course, you have an idea if a guy's going to be an impact player or not right away. And of course, the big men in the NBA, when you get a Tim Duncan or a Shaquille O'Neal, it makes that team competitive for the next 10 or 12 years.
You kind of know, but I mean, and you can look in baseball, Ken Griffey Jr., you can name the guys that you go, this guy is going to be a difference maker. And if he don't get hurt, he's going to be in the big leagues doing some things.
Yeah.
And there's not, and those guys, I mean, those certain guys, and everybody knows. Other guys, they're good, but you're not quite, they got something here or a problem there. They're not quite, not that they won't develop into it, but you can't really be sure. And guess who's calling me right now?
I bet it's Bill Lee.
It's Bill Lee.
All right, I'll bet you. Hey, speaking of which, when you mentioned Griffey, the Orioles took a real shot last year to do something different in the draft when they drafted that #1 pick, Heston Kjerstad, the outfielder. They drafted him under slot. They could pay him less and use the money later on to talk some kids out of going to college. Okay. And they did. They got that kid Baumler, the pitcher, who unfortunately I think had Tommy John this year. But the question is about the hitting tool in baseball. A friend of mine, an old friend of mine who used to work in Major League Baseball on the analytics side, he said that the hitting tool, if somebody can hit, that ability stays with them a long time. If they get injured and miss a couple seasons, could you address that? In other words, this kid Kjerstad, if all things are equal and his heart condition that he has, the myocarditis,
right.
If that dissipates and he's healthy, is the fact that he missed all of last year and pretty much all of this year, is that doom him, or is hitting a resilient tool in your opinion?
Yeah, I don't think it dooms them. It just sets them back. Because going from amateur ball to professional baseball, that's probably one of the biggest differences than the other sports. Because, I mean, there's a lot of little things. Failing in baseball and learning from it, you hope, guys. And one of the things, and you remember Rocky Coppinger that was
sure.
But okay, I was in Rochester, the AAA team. He'd never lost. He had never lost in professional baseball. He goes to AAA, gets knocked around a little bit. That was the greatest thing that could have happened to him. And he saw it just wasn't that easy, and you have to make adjustments. You have to make changes. And that's one of the biggest things when guys, and I've seen it as a coach and as a player, guys that just go through amateur ball, high school, college, American Legion, even the minor leagues. Coppinger's a perfect example. And they never have a problem. And then when they start having problems, they go, now what do I do? And the better guys figure it out. They usually make adjustments and know it. And the game is constantly making adjustments.
Right.
Not, game to game, year to year, inning to inning sometimes. I mean, it's such a mental game. But as far as a guy, I mean, if you have that ability, I don't think
it doesn't just disappear.
No,
in 2 years.
It's like especially now with kids, they do things year round. If you was to take 2 months off, you're not going to forget to hit, pitch, throw, shoot a basket, or you're not going to forget about that.
No, not at his age.
No, not at a lot of people's age. But that is, and he's a guy, and I talked to the general manager,
Mike Elias.
I talked to Elias at one of the Hall of Fame, the Orioles Hall of Fame thing, and that was one of the questions I asked about this guy. How's he doing? And he said, I think he's going to come back, at some point this year. But I mean, how serious is that type of thing? Obviously, it's pretty serious.
It's pretty serious, but Eduardo Rodriguez missed all of last season, and I don't know the level of the disease that Eduardo had. Eduardo came back this year. He has not had a good season. It's been okay, ERA-wise, but he's been healthy the whole season. It's not something you would mess with. So my question is, the state of baseball today, internationally, like going to the winter leagues, would that be something you would encourage a guy like that to do if he's healthy and the doctor says it's okay? Or given the state of COVID right now and sort of other issues around the world, would you just say, hey, we'll get it going. We'll get it going in
Well,
in the
if they can
spring.
do something, I mean, they had the Arizona Fall League here.
Yep.
They had instructional league, which a lot of people are cutting back doing.
Yep.
But those were things that made. I mean, going to winter ball. I mean, there's so many guys that have went there and have gained a lot of knowledge from it.
Yep.
and learned. And it was what a big thing for them. I mean, I could name a lot of guys that just went and you could see how they're maturing into learning how to play the game, learning how to pitch, learning how to hit. You could see that happening, and they get to a point where this guy can leave now. He's ready to go.
Yep.
And compete at the major league level, and that's something. But now with the whole way the things are now with the
and I worry about the safety, like in the Dominican
I mean,
Republic.
it's a little bit. It's a little bit different now. It's a little bit scary with the different things, but like you said, like you're getting at. I mean, guys usually have a good idea of what they're doing hitting wise. The guys that do that, if they don't do it, you hope they do it. But you saw Mancini, he just got wore down this year. I really believe that. He got wore down, and why wouldn't he? But he's a guy that missing the year really didn't affect him other than being fit. But what he went through, most people will never go
him
through.
Worn down.
And it obviously, but I think I hope this guy comes back. But the extent of how serious this is, it could be worse than people are leading on to.
Ross, I want to play a little game with you. I'm going to mention to you 3 or 4 baseball managers, and you tell me if you think their seat is scalding hot, it's okay, or it's ice cold. They're in no trouble at all. Aaron Boone with the Yankees. If let's just say they miss out altogether on the playoffs. This has been a 3-season experiment by Brian Cashman. Got a $250 million payroll and turns it over to, let's be honest, Aaron is a good baseball man. There's no question about it. But somebody that hasn't run a pitching staff, a bullpen, hasn't dealt with injuries and how you deal with that. What do you think? Is he on the scalding hot seat, medium, or it's they're going to stick with him? What do you think?
Probably medium, but somebody's going to have to take the fall for this, and it's usually the manager that's going to end up doing it. But they've had a lot of injuries, and
they've had that dating back to Girardi.
Oh yeah, they've always had
about 5 straight years of nothing but injuries.
And the 2 guys that were usually always hurt are the ones that are probably the healthiest now, and they're hitting home runs. But the Yankees are
Judge and Stanton.
Yeah, and they're doing. But catching is a problem there. The bullpen hasn't been. I mean, they got a lot of guys hurt.
Well, they paid Zach Britton $12 million to be a second banana, and he couldn't even really go to the post this year.
No, and he's having Tommy John surgery, so that's they've had a lot of injuries. They had that streak where they win 13 games in a row or so, but overall the whole year they haven't been somebody that they come in, you go, oh gosh, we got to play the Yankees. They were beatable because
I think he's got a very hot seat. I think he's almost definitely gone unless they,
like you said, somebody's got to pay.
They'll be held to pay.
Right.
Let me look at let's go 3,000 miles across the country, and a guy named, again, there's an old story I'll tell you, Ross. A friend of mine his family owned a lot of different food businesses, and he had a brother of his and his sister-in-law. They spent a fortune opening up a pizza parlor, and they had Gucci wallpaper and incredible furniture and all this. And then his brother would say to me, "Yeah, and they hired a guy making $2 an hour to make the pizza.
Right.
And that's why the place sucked."
Yeah.
Jace Tingler, San Diego Padres. He's got to have a scaldingly hot
big
seat.
Time. I would have to say it's on fire there. And you know what? And we've talked about this before with the people on the staff out there, ex-Oriole people. I don't know. I mean, obviously I think his job is in jeopardy. But there's some reason why that team doesn't gel with all the people they got. You just kind of scratch your head.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it, the other night that one of the most selfish ball players I've ever seen, Manny Machado, gets into a shouting match with clearly a guy who's all about himself, great player, Fernando Tatis. It took 150 games for Manny Machado to say, it's not all about you. I think they have a team of guys that it's all about them.
Well, something's wrong. And and it just, you would have thought everybody, I think, picked them, San Diego, to be, a team that had a chance to go to the World Series with any pitching. And so, that has, you just kind of scratch your head. But I was talking with somebody about that the other day. I mean, you thought they were going to be something is not gelling there. And you've seen it so many times when you're great. Oakland in the 70s, man for man, they weren't as good as a lot of teams, but they played together. They had Reggie, who was, was Reggie, but they had their
mutual hatred of Charlie Finley. They didn't like him.
But they all played together. They knew what each guy had to do, what he brought to the table, and they pitched. And we talked to, with the Giants this year, pitch, hit, and field. You throw to the right base, you make the right pitch, you move the ball, or you get here and there, move a guy over, get a sac fly. You just play the game the way you're supposed to play it.
All right. A rumor I heard the other night, it was it's more than a rumor. There's talk that the New York Mets are really interested now. Their second general manager of the year. The first one, Jared Porter, was dismissed because of the sexual allegations of harassment against some reporters. Now this new guy they brought in, and I forget his name, another young guy, has got a DUI, and this wasn't the right time if you're the general manager of the failing Mets to get a DUI. And I'm not making light of it.
No,
but there's talk that the owner, who isn't shy about spending money, wants to bring in Billy Beane to be the president of baseball operations. And there's talk that there could be a Beane, Bob Melvin deal, like trying to get both of them away from the Oakland A's.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on how they would do in New York with the Mets?
You're coming from an area where, you just go out and play. You don't have to worry about the fans that much and stuff. Going to New York, people,
it's a whole different ball game.
It's completely different. I mean, that you're under, under the gun at 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
And a lot of people I've seen a lot of players that went there. They just couldn't handle it. And it would be tough, I think, for anybody to go and be scrutinized every little thing you did, and every as a player, as a coach, as a manager, as a general manager. I mean, that's that would be kind of tough. And now, are they up to it? Who knows? I would, but,
well, there's going to be a big shakeup with the Mets. Rojas will not be back, and it's a shame. No. He probably deserves better, but that was a bad hire, bringing a young guy like that.
Exactly. That's not a place. Again, Boston, New York, these big LA, bringing these guys in, you want, and that's, why Bruce Bochy's name is mentioned, Showalter. I mean, I think Bochy back to the Padres is a very interesting possibility. Yeah.
I think Bochy to the Yankees would make a lot of sense, but our old friend Buck Showalter, I know he at his core wants to manage again, the way Bill Lee wants to pitch again next weekend.
Well,
I think Buck Showalter will end up with one of these jobs that we're talking about.
He's probably more fit for a New York.
New York, sure.
Bochy's more fit for the West Coast because in San Francisco, and I talked to him right towards the end when he and I think I saw him in Richmond. He come over to see one of his sons pitch because he was with the Double-A team, and we got to talking about how much longer do you want to? He said I might take some time off, and I think he had the heart issue, had some problems, but I think that's fixed. But he he was interested, I think, in taking time off and then coming back. And now what he's doing, now I'm not really sure. I don't know where he's at, but I think there's a good chance that if he wants to do it.
It'll be interesting to see what San Diego does. They've obviously got a talented baseball man in AJ Preller, but at a certain point, you can keep changing the furniture on the deck of the Titanic, but sometimes it's the captain that's got to go. And I wonder if ownership there is going to say, this is what you put together for, their payroll's getting up there to close to 150, $175 million. And they're about 6-7 games over 500.
Well, I think you need to, I think they need to look a little deeper, why this club doesn't gel. What is the problem? Is there somebody or some bodies that don't really get this team meshed together for some reason? And that happens. Some guys just on certain teams, especially with the horses they got. They got
knowing Machado the way you do, and I'm not saying you're best friends with him, but I mean, you observed him for 5-6 years here in Baltimore. Do you think he and Tatis, for him to have yelled at him, it wasn't over one event? It's been building up.
Yeah.
And finally he exploded on him. Can the two of them patch that up? They're guys that are making a huge amount of money.
Yeah. Oh, really?
I mean, Tatis is one of the only people in baseball that makes more than Manny.
Yeah.
Or will in the course of
could that be a problem?
That could be in Manning's mind.
On that team? Yeah. Of course it could be, you know. I mean, money, when they get on the field, money doesn't even come into play. Everybody's out there busting their humps to try to do the job. But, when the game's over, then some people, well, he's making this and I'm making, I did this, I did. You go, come on. How much more money you need? It's an ego thing. And you get some egos that don't mesh together. Yeah. And you're not going to have a winning team.
One last thing before we get away. One more manager, Chris Woodward, Texas Rangers. You think he's safe there, or do you think they're starting to be, the seat is getting warmer?
Yeah, like we said. I mean, when you lose, somebody's going to pay the price, and it's usually the manager. No matter what. I mean, what happened? Rothschild gets axed. Come on. Here's one of your better pitching coaches over the year, and I guess
couldn't believe. Well, that was in San Diego.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, he gets axed, and then the guy that comes in, the pitching hasn't been any better.
That was one of the worst. That was one of the worst panic moves I've ever seen.
Ridiculous.
And that move was ordered by Preller. I guarantee you. The Jace Tingler didn't go into Preller and say, "Pound the desk. I got to get rid of Larry Rothschild."
So that's you kind of scratch your head with that. But like you said, people take or fall on the sword, so to speak, and you go, "Why him? What did he do?" But seen it so many times. Many times.
Hey, it's great chatting with you. We'll reconnoiter and try and get this squared away as to when we can get Bill Lee on, perhaps on audio only. Yeah. But that'll still be a great time. And we'll be back next Monday at 6 o'clock with another one of our famous Press Box Zooms, brought to you by our friends at C3 American Exteriors. And like I say every Monday and Wednesday when we do the show, if you own a home, the day of reckoning is going to come when you need your roof fixed or you need it replaced. And boy, either one can be expensive. And if you're going to go through that expenditure, you got to find people that trust, and like. And I can tell you firsthand that C3 American Exteriors, I know one of the owners very well of the company, and they will do you right. And more important than the fact they stand by their work is they do excellent work at C3 American Exteriors. Check out their website at c3america.com. For Ross Grimsley, I'm Stan the Fan Charles. And Ross, did you watch the Raven game last night?
Absolutely. Well, I watched the first half, and I was in Memphis. So we had a flight.
That's right. You were in Memphis.
Yeah, we were in Memphis. We got back to Sarasota about 2 o'clock this afternoon.
All
So
right.
I watched as much as I could. I went to bed and
You thought they
think,
were going to lose, didn't you?
no, really. But you know what? You knew the way the game was going. It was like a heavyweight fight. They're both landed punches, and whoever's gets the punch in at the end is going to win, and that's what the Ravens did.
You know, I've watched Harbaugh now for I think 13 or 14 seasons, and around year 9, I really kind of soured 10. I soured on him, and I wrote a couple pieces. It's time to go. The next year, I said it's time to go. One of the great things about John Harbaugh, and you've been in sports all your life, Ross, is it's one thing for fans to get on the roller coaster ride, but the coach can't afford to get on that roller coaster ride and
No,
let the players see him down in the dumps. And
right.
Harbaugh, one of the greatest attributes he has is lose J.K. Dobbin, lose Gus Edwards, lose Marcus Peters, bring it on. Oh, lose Ronnie Stanley.
Yeah.
We're not getting down in the dumps. And he had his team ready to play. And generally, his teams really play hard for him.
No, absolutely. I thought the quarterback was fantastic. I mean, I think he's trying to do more than he has to do under the circumstances. And you see him make some mistakes, just trying to force some things. But I mean, he's going to be one of the greats. He is fun to watch.
He is fun to watch.
When he gets the ball in his hand, it's all over.
I'll see you next Monday evening at 6:00 here, brought to you by C3 American Exteriors. For Ross Grimsley, I'm Stan the Fan Charles. Enjoy your Monday night. Orioles and Phillies getting ready to kick it off at 7:00, 8:20 tonight. Detroit Lions at Green Bay Packers. We'll see you next week. Thanks for coming in and tuning in. Bye-bye.